Hi, I got part 2 of the Eminence in Shadow Season 2, wrangled together like 4 gnomes in a trench coat. Check out the other videos if you missed them. When we last left off, Gamma reports to Alpha on the proceedings of their company's battle with the corporate alliance. They're obviously dominating the playing field. New announces that they have guests, likely regarding Gatan, the Therianthrope. Upon hearing this, Gamma decides she will be the one attending the guests. Everyone is confused. Gamma tries again and is met with apprehension, then acceptance. Alpha sends her off with 2 surprised secretaries. She seems pleased. Alpha comments about Gamma being 17 years old, which confuses Nu and murders this clock. The intruders have entered the belly of the beast and unknowingly await their demise at the hands of their target, who has just shown up to welcome them. Her words launch the homies into action. However, Gamma remains alone, summoning this guy's confidence. He attacks, but Gamma is hard. She scolds him for not following her predictions, then counters with a barrage of imprecise slime sortings. Her opponent is unshaken until Gamma identifies his fighting style. He is shook. Gamma remains determined and carries on with her onslaught. Her amateur moves are easily dodged, but her assailant lands a strike to her dome. Gamma is hard. He is shook. Gamma finds his swordsmanship impressive and decides to go all out by vandalizing their storage room. It is ineffective. She reflects on Cid's analysis of her capabilities, of which he determined to be so unbalanced that she should just go with a raw power approach. And so she does, but gracefully trips over a loose tile, causing a mild localized earthquake. Gamma compliments her opponent's tactical skills to place such a trap beforehand. He calls for a retreat, but his goons are already incapacitated. Gamma warns her girls of her adversary's strength and decides to go all out again. She falls for another of his dastardly traps, but the momentum of her strike carries through into a projectile approach, which ultimately reduces her foe into a crisp nugget. Gamma is proud. Meanwhile, Gatan and his sweaty boy discuss their failures. Gatan has enough and wistfully contemplates the days when the cult had more promising assassins. Apparently, he is using the corporate alliance for some relatively unknown purpose involving Shadow, which will probably be revealed soon. Alexia and Cid duel amidst the autumn leaves. She has improved, I guess. They nibble on some steamy circles and discuss just that. Alexia still laments her lack of strength, especially since the incident with Rose. Iris and her share a brain cell or something. Then she comments on how being busy makes time go faster. Cid is nonchalant. Alexia remarks on her jealousy over his carefree lifestyle, and as she departs, expresses her hope that Cid can maintain it. He only feels hunger, however. John Smith makes contact with an agent who reports that production is complete. Yukime set up a counterfeiting factory in the dank cave where Shadow Garden made their first attack against the cult of Diablos. The end result is pretty good at a glance. However, John Smith believes otherwise and vaguely mentions various aspects of the bills that don't actually need any work just to sound cool. Yukime apologizes for her lack of thoroughness. John Smith assures Ukers that the dollar bills are fine as they are, and no one other than him will be able to differentiate real from fake. Mr. Smith is given the task of concealing the factory, while Yukime handles Gatan. She has a dramatic flashback to when he slaughtered her entire village, then vows to avenge the lives which were lost. Mitsugoshi has picked up on the counterfeit currency, and Alpha decides to inform the Alliance to avoid the devaluation of their own paper bills. Alpha big brains her way into a thought hole and orders Gamma to look into the source of the fake money. Big G and Little G can't tell the difference between the monies, but Gatan at least knows that having more paper than gold is a bad thing for credit. He planned to collapse the market at the commands of the cult anyway, but this is much too soon. The cult's grubby assets are mixed within the Alliance's treasury, meaning that the cult itself will be losing massive amounts of money, along with the sinking economy. Gato is concerned. Shadow Garden proceeds with their investigation of the counterfeit bills by rummaging through a train bound for the Lawless City. Rose is along for this one, and so is scolded for being rash and unpredictable. They slink in, but are quickly entrapped within John Smith's evil web. His strings are magically reinforced. He introduces himself and wiggles his fingers. Rose goes for the kill move, but John Smith wiggles faster. With all the garden's shadows erotically tied up, Mr. Smith flings them out the window. Number 666 wants to give chase, but her commander insists that they instead report to Gamma. They watch the train fade into the distance. Rose laments her lack of strength as snow begins to fall. The girls report on John Smith, the mysterious guardian of the counterfeit money. Rose decides to speak out of turn about his power, equating him to that of the Seven Shadows. She is silenced, and they flee. Alpha reveals that she assigned Zeta to look into something nondescript, then decides that Delta should handle John Smith. Later, the train is under attack once again. Delta goes totally nuts, but John's fingers are much too wiggly for her. The train is exploded as a result. Smith wiggles some more, and Delta is overpowered. He stands victorious above her. However, Delta's superior sniffer discovers that John is actually Shadow. They discuss her mission to eliminate Mr. Smith and Shadow's super secret elite agent task, which he keeps private, despite Delta wanting to help. She is conflicted, but Shadow has a new mission for her, in exchange for a special reward. This hypes Delta up a great deal. Her new task is to hunt a man named Juggernaut. She dry humps Shadow, then backflips out the window and runs off into the distance. Back at the Shadow's garden, Gamma and Alpaca figure that Delta was killed in action. Alpha is enraged. She unveils John Smith's plan to seize the entire market, then becomes wrinkled with rage. Meanwhile, some cult goons have arrived to scold Gaetan, but no one scolds Gaetan. He intends to impose on the royals' duty of securing goods entering and exiting the city to find the source of the counterfeit bills. Alexia and Iris run into each other in the mean streets. The younger princess has thrown herself into her studies on holistic aspects of kingdom management to better understand how and when to wield her sword. Iris just up and leaves. Beta reports on the corporate alliance's rash moves, while Shadow freezes for dramatic effect. She finds his notes curious, probably because they are in Japanese. Beta mistakes his frantic shaking as immeasurable worry, and proceeds to bear the news of Delta's passing. This confuses Shadow, but he recovers by stating she has only gone somewhere far away. Beta mentions his scribblings out of curiosity, and he reveals that they are encrypted with 5 languages, which he himself created. She wishes to learn, prompting Shadow to give her a challenge to interpret his notes. Later, John Smith easily breaks through the corporate alliance's checkpoint, but is attacked by Alpha. They exchange blows through an incredible display of firepower. Alpha reads his moves, finding them to be identical to Shadow's. She questions his motives for causing such a fuss and sending Delta away, but only gets vague answers. She proceeds to have a small mental breakdown, only wishing to support the man who saved her life and gave her purpose. This declaration motivates her to prove her worthiness, and they begin to fight once more. Alpha actually lands a couple of hits on Shadow, which is pretty impressive, but ultimately lacks the necessary techniques to best him. She is pushed from the train and subject to lewd camera angles. Yukime informs John Smith about the procession of their master strategy. Everything is going according to their plan. The people have already exhausted the banks of gold, rendering paper money useless. As a result, the government has started to intervene to prevent the total collapse of the economy. Yukime decides that this is an appropriate opportunity to disclose her background story. During times of war among the beast peoples, she was married into another clan to strengthen an alliance. This marriage was to Gaetan, whom she admired and received adoration in return. Times were joyous indeed. However, the strife of war was not that far away, and her village was destroyed in the crossfire. In a fit of desperation to protect Yukime, Gaetan turned to the cult's magic pills to become stronger. This probably drove him to madness or something fantastical like that, and caused him to slay her mother. Yukime obviously didn't appreciate this and fought back, but Gaetan was too far gone. After becoming a prostitute with ambition, she eventually evolved into the cool madame she is today for the sake of vengeance. She boards the train bound for the apex of her destiny to slay Gaetan. The economy is in shambles. Beta continues to translate Shadow's notes, and Alpha sulks by the fireplace. Garter informs Gaetan that Yukime is behind the counterfeit bills, which causes him to have an emergency hallucination of a flaming fox and halt the carriage. Gamma reports to Alpha, who is in a poetically melancholic daze. Mitsugoshi is slowly being claimed by the credit crisis, with no hope in sight, especially given that Shadow was the one to instigate the event to begin with. Alpha tells Gamma all about it, and brings her into the dirigible of despair by stating that Shadow has washed his hands of their incompetence, or something like that. Nu barges in on their uncontrollable weeping to report that Gaetan is undoubtedly associated with the cult of Diablos, and was planning to circulate his own counterfeit bills. Alpha has a brain blast upon hearing this, immediately realizing that Shadow had known this all along, but to what end? Beta staggers in to report that she and Eta have deciphered Shadow's coded messages. His notes reveal that his intentions were golden from the beginning. They just didn't realize how golden. Sasuga Shadow had coincidentally ruined the cult's finances while attempting to steal money from the entire market. Gaetan and Yukime have their long-awaited reunion reunion in the background, while the girls deliberate on Shadow's brilliance. Delta also shows up right on time, and is confused. Meanwhile, John Smith is happily slaughtering all those who are after his heaps of money. Upon returning to his dragon's lair, he finds it devoid of his precious gleaming Skrilla. Yukime's secretaries find him to report that she has gone missing, likely to where Getan is. This triggers John Smith to laugh hysterically, after likely assuming that Getan stole his lavish piles of cash. It's obvious to the viewer that Shadow's ladies were there, but John Smith doesn't know that. Riots in the streets. Yukime is significantly stronger than Getan, and she extracts her vengeance. She spares his life for the respect she once held for him, but this makes Getato pop a quick Sudafed. He lands a surprise attack after being juiced, but hesitates to finish the job, resulting in a duel with John Smith, who states that he is here to retrieve something precious to him. Getan is shook. They have a misunderstanding as they demolish the local wildlife. Yukime contemplates John Smith's bottomless compassion. Upon discovering that he is outmatched by the man who defeated him long ago, Getan is prompted to say what's on his mind. He attempts to guzzle the whole bottle, but gets a heel to the face. John Smith relentlessly instructs Getanto to talk while pummeling sense into him. Yukime jingles her bells. Sometime later, Getan finally reveals his true intentions to protect Yukime. Unfortunately, he really didn't want to admit that for some reason, and with his last moments of consciousness, tells John Smith to take care of her. John and Euchre's embrace while he heals her wounds. She recognizes the purple threads of the stylish bandit slayer, the savior of her village. John Smith interpreted Getan's death rattles in a totally different way, believing that his treasure was buried beneath the snow around this battlefield. Iris and her knights uncover Garter's misdeeds and arrest him for a billion different reasons. Yukime comments on John Smith's compassion again. Shadow goes to start digging for gold. Alpha informs Yukime about the theft of their money, Getan's unfortunate conversion to the cult of Diablos, Shadow's involvement in the economic warfare, and their relation to Mitsugoshi. Yukime and Alpha form an alliance together and shake hands as a result. Cid is stuck trying to dig for Getan's imaginary gold coins while contemplating his own happy ending. Delta tries to bring up the promise Cid made to her earlier on the train, and he attempts to gaslight her into forgetting. He fails. Then they discuss the evil demon lord, clad in crimson, named Santa Claus, who enters dreams to grant wishes. Cid decides to compromise by keeping his promise, but limits her wish to almost anything she wants. He then declares that he is going on a journey of self-discovery, thinking to himself that his withdrawal is mostly intended to give Alpha and the girls some time to cool off. Cid dramatically disappears into the snow while pondering his nonchalant strategy of maintaining perfect interpersonal relationships. Delta strikes at something solid buried beneath the snow, but Cid has already begun his journey. Skell and Poe attempt to sucker Cid into picking up older women, but Cid isn't home. Upon infiltrating his room, the furtive friends discover VIP Mitsugoshi tickets to the grand opening of their exclusive hot springs, Score. They decide to use these treasures to entice ladies into joining them, and so they stampede around town, asking random women to date them. They're arrested by Nu, who thoroughly interrogates them. Poe spills the beans, but quickly covers by insisting that Cid gifted the tickets to them so they could date the Mitsugoshi ladies. Nu is shook, but cannot disobey orders from Cid. She quickly ideates on the complexity of his omnipotent processing to discern Cid's true motives, but decides to seek answers from the Seven Shadows. Upon being unable to do so, the meeting of the Greek alphabet goes into session to discuss their date with with Skell and Poe. First, Eta, the founder of Mitsugoshi's Hot Spring Land, explains the site as a relaxation resort complex based around the legend of the Dragon's Tears. Alpha proceeds to reenact a grayscale film flashback of the moment when Shadow first heard of the Dragon's Tears, something to do with gold or something or other. He essentially improv'd a bunch, told them to dig, and fluttered away into the night, and so they dug, eventually uncovering a hot spring. This seems like the end of the story. However, with these recent events, they figure there must be something only Shadow foresaw. Now, to decide who will attend. They somewhat politely quarrel over the honor of accompanying Cid, but come to no decision. As a result, they do rock, paper, scissors. These are the fated chosen: Beta, Lambda, and Delta. The girls are enraged by the absence of Cid, sending Poskell into a trembling fit. They lie their way out of danger and have an emergency meeting to discuss the disparity and representation of the genders resulting from the lack of Cid, the Blood Queen is here too. Poe unleashes his secret weapon, Count Virgin Boy's Handbook, World's Best Love Tips, your heart-pounding first Hot Springs date edition. This author's credentials seem counterintuitive to the results promised by the book. Skell and Poe are inspired though. Meanwhile, the girls seductively change. While discussing Shadow's absence, they decide that he may have left the mission solely to them, but Alpha remains enthusiastic. It's pool time, and the girls are too skilled at volleyball. The cat and dog fight. Alpha contemplates whether Shadow's intention was to have them enjoy their time at the hot spring together. Ada suddenly picks up on a spiky, magical signature deep underground. Skell and Poe misunderstand their isolation from the women and decide to peep on them instead. Euchers and Alexia are here too. Lambda, Beta, and Delta discuss the dragon's tears in detail while in the nude baths. A while ago, some princess saved a little dragon, became friends with it, then got involved in a war. Some other stuff happened and the princess got murked while the dragon was away. At the time of her death, the dragon said a few sappy things, causing her to shed a tear before perishing. The dragon flooded the entire kingdom in spicy hot tears afterwards, which revived the princess. However, the dragon was nowhere to be found. Lambda figures they should focus more on the water. Skell and Poe are raunch pervs, and with the power of their white-hot friendship, the bold men go to get the chicks. They're instantly laid low with pepper spray. The hot springs does an earthquake a little bit. Ada figures it might have something to do with tears, and sets her sights on Beta's lovely elven princess water. She is restrained, threatened with a butt plug, and ridiculed thoroughly. Beta's cries activate the dormant dragon magic within the water. Alpha and the girls do a magical girl transformation to protect their resort, and go to fight the wet beast. Gamma and Ada sit this one out. Alpha goes for the finishing move with her iconic plunging attack, inducing a wondrous shower of golden orbs which imbue the water with magical properties beneficial to a hot spring. Beta gets licked by a friendly lizard, which goes to heaven afterwards, probably. Alpha makes the assumption that Shadow wanted to free the soul of the kind dragon. The girls use this opportunity to increase sales, and all returns to normalcy with the members of the Shadow Garden all participating in a relaxing day off. In the after credits, Skell and Poe sustained so much head trauma from the repeated beatings that they have no memories from their hot springs adventure. Despite this, they declare their determination to move forward into their celibate journeys ahead, and that's the end of part 2 of season 2 of The Eminence in Shadow. Hey, do things if you want. Patreon for me? Yes. Bye.